Okay. Everybody just check that you got it and you're okay with that. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. We have a lot of people who have served on the Township Committee here in Maplewood. We have a lot of people who are serving and have served as Maplewood Democratic Committee District Leaders. And we're going to kind of go around the room and allow people to speak a little bit about their experience running for and serving in each of these roles. So, we know that a lot of times people look at what's going on in government, they see what's going on in the government, and they feel like it's something that, it's not accessible to them, right? Or it's something maybe that they dream about and maybe have had some fears or reservations about trying to do. So we think it's really important for people to understand that this is something that anybody can do, right? I mean, I served myself on the township committee. It's now almost 20 years ago, and I never expected to be in that role. And I know India's has been in that position. Garnett's been in that position where all of a sudden you get the call like, "Hey, we think that you might be a good person to serve on the township committee," or in Garnett's case, in the state assembly. Um, and it's something that it can be intimidating, but it's something that everybody can do. And we want everybody to know that the Maplewood Democratic Committee will consider everybody who would like to run with the endorsement of our committee. We started doing this last year. Last year, we only had one person show up for this call who wasn't part of the Democratic Committee already. So we're very, very happy that this year we've got a lot more people who are showing interest and want to learn a little bit more. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go around the room. We're going to speak to some of our elected officials. We're going to ask people to speak for a couple of minutes, try to limit it to 5 minutes, about their experience running for and serving in the office that they're currently in, because we want to make, and I say 5 minutes because we want to make sure that the people who are on the call to learn more have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So for those who don't know, the Maplewood Township Committee is the governing body of Maplewood. We have 5 members of the Township Committee, all of whom serve 3-year terms. In Maplewood, the form of government that we have, which is statutorily mandated, requires that the Township Committee each year on January 1st elect the mayor and the deputy mayor. It's the Township Committee themselves choose who is going to serve in those roles in leading the Township Committee in the work that they do. We start the process early every year. It's still January, and we're talking tonight about the term that's going to start in January 1st, 2025. The reason being is that we have a primary in June, and state statute requires that petitions for people who want to run in the Democratic primary in June have their petitions turned in by the end of March. So we have this meeting tonight for people to learn more. We're asking for people who would like to run and be formally endorsed by the Maplewood Democratic Committee to submit a letter of interest and a resume by February 12th. And after that point, we will have meetings where the Maplewood Democratic Committee and the general public will have an opportunity to meet with you and speak with you. And then the Maplewood Democratic Committee will vote on endorsing people who wish to run. There will be 2 seats this year that are up for election. Those seats are currently held by Nancy Adams and Jermaine Cripe. Nancy and Jermaine both advised me formally on Friday that they are going to be running again this year. But one of the nice things about the Maplewood Democratic Committee is we can endorse more than 2 people who want to run for the office each term, right? So, I mean, there's always a chance that we might not endorse Nancy and Jermaine, although I don't see any reason that we wouldn't, but we can endorse 3 people or 4 people or 5 people or 10 people if 10 people choose to run. So we're going to go around the room this evening and speak to some current and former Township Committee members about their experience running and serving on the Township Committee. So, Dean, you are currently on the Township Committee. Are you comfortable speaking now about your experiences? Do you mind going first?
I would love to speak about it, and thank you for having me, Ian.
Thank you for being here. We're very happy you're here.
Of course, of course. I'm always happy to talk to people about serving and running. Anyone can do this. It doesn't matter what your training is, your background, your household situation. We're going to get into it a little bit tonight, and hopefully, we will inspire some of you to run, if not for this election cycle, in an upcoming election cycle. Because one of the most rewarding things, truly very rewarding things to do, is to represent the people of your community, to support your community, to make it better, to be a leading voice for your community and for the region. I'm really, really excited to be here. It's a great honor to serve on the local governing body. As Ian said, our chairman here said, it's called the Township Committee. The Township Committee is the oldest form of government in the nation. And for those of you who have served on a board, a corporate board, or a nonprofit board, it runs pretty much the same way, right? There are 5 members in our case. And just like a board does, we have an annual reorganization, right? That's when we decide who's going to chair us going forward, who's going to be the vice chair, who's going to be the secretary, who's going to be on this committee or that committee. That is what we do. We are all elected. Every single member of the township committee must be elected, and we serve at large, right? Maplewood's a big town, but we represent everyone. We don't represent respective districts. We otherwise are like any city council that many of you are probably familiar with. Our function is policymaking, legislative, it's advocacy, it's adopting a budget that pays for everything that local government does. It's taking a stand on local, regional, statewide, and international issues and conflicts. And it's representing our town outside of our town at conferences and events and at other opportunities around the state. So I'm delighted to begin my 3rd term on the Township Committee. Again, as Ian explained in the beginning, the Township Committee terms are 3 years. So that means I did 6, my 1st term, my 2nd term, and I am now embarking on my 3rd term. And I can tell you I'm a much better public servant now than I was in the beginning. I've become more seasoned and more thoughtful and more balanced. Leadership requires those qualities. You're representing everyone, all of the issues. We are a very inclusive town. We are a very inclusive and representative governing body. So our job is to listen to everyone and to take approaches to find solutions to problems that are balanced and thoughtful. And yes, sometimes we also have to lead. We have to lead people even though they may not be ready or they may not be comfortable, right? So I can say that we are also a very hands-on governing body. When you think of your city council, your town council, especially in suburbia or small towns, you might think, oh, these are the people that show up for ribbon cuttings. And we certainly do our fair share of ribbon cuttings. One of our jobs and one of our joys is to support the opening of new businesses. We work very hard to make sure that we have a diverse and vibrant commercial districts. We have several commercial districts throughout the town. So we love going to ribbon cuttings, but we do a lot more than just that, okay? As I said, one of our big things is to adopt and oversee the township budget. What does the budget pay for? It pays for public works, trash, recycling, road repair, fields maintenance, planting and pruning of trees. It pays for engineering projects, all of our infrastructure improvements, road repair. It pays for recreational and community services. Our public safety officials It pays for our Department of Health, and certainly we've been strong advocates in Maplewood in particular for public health and greater public health. And we've expanded our Department of Public Health and everything that it offers the community. It helps pay for our artistic and cultural offerings. And those of you who have lived in Maplewood for a while know that we do a lot of artistic and cultural events throughout the year. And of course, it pays for the staffing of all of our respective departments that oversee all of those components. We are the legislative body primarily, right? So we adopt new laws, we revise laws, and we take a stand on issues. I'm proud to report, by way of example, that we have accomplished a lot of great things together with the community in recent years. We'll be opening our brand new 21st century fossil fuel-free Maplewood Library later this year. We're really excited about that. And that was because we went out there and we were first in line to take advantage of never before available state grants under the Murphy administration to build a brand new 21st century library. We took a stand for greater shared services across the state and certainly in our town to create efficiencies in service and to be more cost effective and more fiscally responsible. So we merged our fire department with South Orange. So now, and we have since operationalized that merger. We have a new shared fire department with South Orange. It's called the South Essex Fire Department. And I can assure you, based on the data that we have already in the short period that the merger has been operationalized, not only have we saved money, but we have been there to fight fires when they happen. We have been there. Our firefighters are also EMTs. We have been there to get people to the hospital when they've had medical emergencies and other events. We adopted a new master plan, and we're really excited this year and next year to embark upon implementing all of the recommendations of the master plan. There are a lot of you out there who are doing some incredible advocacy right now about how we can increase pedestrian safety in town, how we could increase mobility in town, especially for those for cyclists and for pedestrians. And that's going to be a big focus area of ours this year and next year. We expanded our crisis intervention social worker program together with the community and experts in the community and residents who raised their voices. They said, hey, listen, why don't we divert some things away from traditional law enforcement response, like substance abuse or overdose, like homelessness, like someone who's having an emotional response, like hoarding, like domestic violence. Why not have social workers integrated into our public safety response by way of crisis intervention and support in a way that police officers are never trained to be social workers? And we started a pilot program a couple of years ago, and I'm proud to report that we have since expanded it and added more social workers to do that. We also have built greater operational and other support for our community fridge. Food insecurity. Our data shows that food insecurity is a real problem across the region, and even in affluent suburban Maplewood, there are people who don't have enough food to eat. And we put in a community fridge a couple of years back, and we spoke to the residents who live near the fridge and to the businesses along it. And we found out that we had a lot of improvements to make to ensure that the community fridge is safe and reliable and accessible to all and continues being successful in combating food insecurity. We opened multiple new businesses. When you look at Springfield Avenue, there's hardly any vacancies. When you look at Maplewood Village, there's diversity in food, in local merchants, in experiences. And that is a big part of what we do as local representatives and governing body members by going out there and recruiting new businesses, why they should come to Maplewood, because Maplewood is a great place to work and play in. We've moved forward redevelopment projects. We have a lot of opportunities to expand our economic opportunities in the town, and also to provide housing. Housing is the #1 concern for every community in New Jersey. It doesn't matter suburban or urban, rural, north, south, central Jersey. We don't have enough housing. We are over 200,000 housing units behind in providing affordable and safe and decent housing to the residents of New Jersey. And New Jersey is fast becoming one of the most unaffordable states in the union. And we're certainly one of the most densely populated areas in the country. So how do we provide for new housing opportunities when we don't have a lot of land to develop in? That's where redevelopment comes in.
Yeah. If I can just interject for a second too, I think it's important for people to know, the many talents that our elected officials bring to us, right? And one of the other things that Dean Daffis does in his day job, right? Because, these people have day jobs as well, is he works for DCA in Trenton and he focuses on housing issues. And so we're very fortunate to have him here working on these issues here in town. Dean, I know that you can't stay on this call for the entire time tonight, but I do want to ask you one question that maybe you can answer to help people who are considering running for the township committee. What do you think is the first thing that somebody who wants to run for township committee should do or to be focused on in order to prepare for running?
Get involved. Build your relationships in town and with your neighbors. Raise your hand to volunteer if you're not already volunteering in some capacity. Because that is really a way to get to know how the town works. That is a way to learn where there are gaps and how we bridge those gaps, right? One of the things that's happening tonight at the same time that we're meeting here together is a community public meeting about an all-inclusive playground that we want to put in. The residents were loud and clear about the fact that we don't have an all-inclusive playground, for neurodiverse and mobility challenged and other folks in Maplewood. And we are really proud to be moving that forward. So build your relationships. I was elected to serve. I started serving on January 1st, 2018, but I started getting involved and going to meetings and finding ways to volunteer and getting to know my neighbors and building relationships with people across town for 2.5 years before that, right? So some of you are already involved and you're so ready to take that next step and to run for office. And those of you who are thinking about it, really get involved, reach out and build those relationships, because public service is all about relationships. That's all it is. Everyone brings different experience, professional and other, and passions to the table. And the issues of one person are not the same issues of another person. We're all inspired by different things. But the #1 thing is you have to have relationships with people throughout the community in order to do this successfully. And for you to have people who are going to back you when you run for office, right? It's an incredible privilege and honor to have people to vote for you. And they're going to vote for you when they know you and they have confidence in you to represent them and the rest of the community. So I would say that that's a good place to start. I know I don't want to, hog the whole meeting here and just talk, but some of the other things that we do is we do sit as liaisons on different committees to move some of these things that we want to do forward, right? And this is serving alongside residents who raise their hands to volunteer. We are constantly appointing new residents to volunteer on different boards and committees. Because it is really a partnership. I mean, I was inspired to run in Maplewood because of the incredible civic engagement here. people in Maplewood are really engaged. And that's incredibly inspiring. And we serve alongside them. It's not just us, it's all of us together. And of course, we partner with the school district as well. In recent years, we have taken that to a whole other level to have regular meetings with the school district, because a lot of the issues that we face are common, right? When we're talking about pedestrian safety and mobility and public safety, that is a concern for our students and their family, their parents, as it is a concern for the greater community. So there is really no dividing line in governance and service between the township and the school district when it comes to certain issues. Of course, the school district has been moving forward in integrating our schools long overdue, and that had to happen with the township's governing body support and partnership. It could not have happened on its own. And so we also partner with our school district governing body partners. And we collaborate, of course, with many electeds in the region, fellow towns and cities. Our sister town, South Orange, we work very closely together with them and their governing body. And of course, with other mayors and electeds around the state. And we work very closely with our legislative partners, as our neighbor Garnett Hall, who is now at the legislature on the assembly. We're really excited about that. And with our congressional representatives, because they have to fight for us in Washington. They have to know what our issues are at the local level. Is it childcare? Is it making New Jersey Transit more responsible and reliable for transportation? Is it housing? And is it tax credits? Like, what is it? Some of the things are beyond our local control, so we need that congressional representation. But without those relationships with those electeds, we can't move those issues that are important to our working families here in Maplewood forward without that. Bottom line is, this is an incredible opportunity. If you're one of those people who served in student government, run for office. This is the next thing to do. If you're someone who's already engaged, you've been a volunteer in our boards and committees, and you know that you can do more and you want to take the next step, run for office. If you're someone who isn't any of those things, but you have something that you want to bring to the table because your voice matters too, and because your voice is not currently represented on the governing body, please join us. Run
That I think
for
it's
office.
important. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you were freezing. That's why I'm jumping in here.
Yep.
One of the things that Dean pointed out that I think is really important is, start getting involved now, right? Even if you choose not to run for the township committee at this point, there are advisory committees in the township of Maplewood that advise the township committee. You can imagine there is a senior citizens advisory committee, there's a recreation advisory committee, there's a pool advisory committee, there's a community board on police. There are so many different issues that you can get involved in as a volunteer to advise the township committee on these issues. And it's a great way to get involved. It's a great way to learn about how the township government runs. Now, another thing to keep in mind is sometimes you might say, like, well, how do I find out about these committees, right? So if you look at the township website, you will see a list of what committees that you could volunteer to join. Also, you can always call Liz Fritzen, our township clerk in town hall. When I first moved to Maplewood 28 years ago, I learned Liz Fritzen is the person to call to ask almost any question about the township of Maplewood, and she can help you navigate what committees might be available, what the process is for you to sign up to try to volunteer for them. So, Dean, we really appreciate you being on the call tonight and imparting such great wisdom and knowledge to people who are considering doing this, and we thank you. So now I'm going to go to somebody who served on the township committee a number of years ago. And this is somebody who not only has served on the township committee, is now serving as a district leader as well. Somebody who's been very involved in policy and legislative issues around the state. And we're going to turn it over at this point to India Larrier to talk about her experience running for and serving on the Township Committee. So India?
Great. Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Dean, for doing that really comprehensive rundown on everything Township Committee. You saved a lot of words for a lot of us, so thank you. So I was on the Township Committee. I ran for the Township Committee in 2011. I was on the Township Committee from January of 2012 until December of 2017. So I did 2 terms. And you've heard a lot about what the Township Committee does and its importance to our town. And I'm going to go another step and say even its importance to our county and our state. I think what I'd like to do is answer the question, what makes you think you can run for the Township Committee? And I asked that question because I asked that question of myself. So one day I was just sitting around minding my own business at work, and someone called me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of running for office?" And at the time, I really had not. I had been volunteering in Maplewood, excuse me, for a number of years. I was at the time a member of the now expired Maplewood First Aid Squad. I did a short time on the coalition, and I grew up being told that if you're going to be in a community, if you want to have that community be what you want it to be, you have to roll up your sleeves and get involved. And so that's what I had done. Never occurred to me to run for office. But given the opportunity, I thought about it and I thought this was actually just the next step. At the time, I was in between jobs. I had 3 children that I was raising. They're all grown now. And I really considered myself just an interested and caring Maplewood resident. Good neighbor, I hope. Friend to a lot of people in town. I knew members of the Township Committee, but it never occurred to me to become one until someone said, think about it. And I did. And I'm very glad that I did, because as Ian and Dean have said, it really was and is just the next step in being involved in your township. So what made me think that I could be a member of the Township Committee? I care about Maplewood. I didn't have any experience as an elected official. I had never run for anything actually in my life, not school or anything. But I did care about my town, and I did care enough to volunteer and get involved. Once I was elected, I will tell you that there was a lot I didn't know. And even as Dean has said, he's a different and more matured elected official than he was when he started. When I finished, I certainly was more all of those things than I was when I started. I will tell you that being on the Township Committee, you have 4 very, very supportive colleagues who will be sitting on that dais with you. And if you don't know something, there are plenty of people on that dais who will be willing to explain it. I will tell you that if you don't agree with everyone on the Township Committee, that's your conscience and your vote. And your vote is your vote. And no one will tell you that you shouldn't have your vote. They'll try to convince you, but that's how it works. So one thing that I discovered, oh, and don't forget Liz Fritzen, who is everyone's babysitter once they get on the township committee. She is a lifesaver for new members of the township committee. I will tell you that not all the time will people in the town appreciate your vote, but they will appreciate your giving your time and you're giving your effort to make the town better. I believe that in our town, I'll say most people believe that we all love Maplewood. We don't all agree on how to do that, but we all love Maplewood. And we all give enough grace and space for each one of us to have our thoughts and our beliefs, and if you're on the township committee, your vote on how that should be implemented. And that's the reason why it's done by majority. So I would say, if you care about Maplewood, first of all, if you live in Maplewood, second of all, if you care about Maplewood, if you care about your neighbors, this is an excellent opportunity for you to put that caring and that interest into action. When I started, I had just finished up my master's in public health. And so I was a natural to become the president of the Maplewood Board of Health. There are, as Dean said, there are many committees where you can interject your own interests. Do you have children who recreate? You can be on you can be a liaison to the recreation board. If you are interested in seniors, you can be the township liaison to the senior advisory committee. If you are interested in planning, there's the planning board. If you're interested in things like zoning, why do different areas have different rules? There's the zoning board that you can be a liaison to. So there is ample opportunity for you to exercise your own interests as well as being part of the governing body. And then, of course, there's always the fun stuff, like the parades and the ribbon cuttings and all the other fun things that we get to do. And honestly, I will tell you, one of my closest friends now, it was a member of the township committee with me. So not only will you gain the opportunity to help your neighbors and work on behalf of them, you'll gain a lot of good friends. Once I left the township committee, I still wanted to be very much involved with what's going on. And so now I'm a district leader for District 3, yay, District 3, in Maplewood. And I do things like help get out the vote. Maplewood shows up and shows out at election time. Partly that's because of what we do as district leaders. Our committee, our Get Out the Vote committee, headed by Becky Shear at this point, is phenomenal. And we have proved that we know how to get people out. And it's fun. And it's work, but it's fun. And you're helping your township. This is why I say we're helping our county, we're helping our state. And so I would urge you, if you're thinking about it, know that you can do this and know that we would be very happy to help you and support you. And then I'll pass it back to Ian.
Thank you very much, India. India, if you could let everybody know what was the most rewarding thing for you in terms of your service on the Maplewood Township Committee?
Wow.
That's just one.
I think the most rewarding thing was knowing that I was in a position to respond to people who reached out for help, be it help with my backyard is flooding, or help with there are cats running all over our township, or help with we have people who are in need. To be able to implement policies that actually help people, I'm going to say that would be the most rewarding aspect of being on the township committee, because that, even though I care about it as a neighbor, I wasn't necessarily able at just being on my street to be able to do things to help my neighbors and the township at large. So I would say that was, as I look back upon it, I would say that would be the most.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. So I'm just going to speak real briefly because we've learned a lot from Dean in India. So I've served on the Maplewood Township Committee twice. The first time was from 2003 to 2006. And then in 2016, we had somebody on the Township Committee, Marlon Brownlee, who moved away from town prior to his term being completed. You do have to live in Maplewood to serve on the Maplewood Township Committee. So I was chosen to complete the last 4 months of his term, and that was kind of an exciting time to be on the township committee, right? Because I had learned everything that I had learned from several years back. I had been involved in Democratic politics, and I didn't have to worry about running again because we already knew who was going to be running for that next term. So that was a pretty exciting experience. And while I was in serving again during that very brief period, it was right after the 2016, or it was during the 2016 presidential election. And so as an immigration attorney, it was very important to me that Maplewood be recognized as a sanctuary or welcoming committee. And I got to start the process for Maplewood becoming that during that time. I will just say that a couple of things to think about if you're thinking about running for the township committee. I think the most important thing that you could do at the beginning of the process is speak to your family, because no matter what anybody tells you, this is a very demanding position in terms of your emotional resources and your time. You have to be prepared for it, but your family needs to be prepared for that as well. When I first ran, there were people who said to me, "Oh, Ian, there's two meetings a month. That's it." But the reality is that you are out of your home more often than not 4 or 5 nights a week. Events to attend on the weekend. And so your family really needs to be prepared for that. So I would tell people, if you're considering this, think about how you manage your own time, and think about the involvement that your family is going to have in terms of managing and keeping track of your time as well. So we've had a couple of presentations about the township committee now. Now let's open up the question.
And can I just interject really quickly?
Of course.
One thing. Well, you asked me a great question, and then you just pretty much exemplified it. You asked me what was the rewarding thing, and I said being able to help people. And when you were on the township committee part 2, one of the things that we needed in Maplewood and South Orange was a voice for our seniors. And up until that time, there was no organized, well, we did have a program, but there was no organized committee of senior residents who were speaking for other senior residents. And during that very short time on the township committee, Ian Grodman, in fact, did start the Maplewood Senior Advisory Committee, which is running even today. So there's an example of a need in the township and someone who was on the township committee and was able to answer that need because he was on the township committee. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, India. And you're right. It's even serving on the township committee for that very brief 4 months, because that's all it was, you can have an impact on making your community a better place. So thank you for acknowledging that, India, and thank you for pointing that out. That's really great. I appreciate it. So that being said, is there anybody on the call who has any questions about running for and serving on the township committee? Any questions that you'd like to ask of any of the people who've spoke about running for and serving on the township committee? And I do want to point out that that Dean probably has a lot of other things that he's got to go to this evening. He may not be able to stay in the call for a really long time. So any questions? Don't be shy. Ted Dorset, you got a question? Maybe not. Ted, if there's a question or anything that you'd like to ask about, please feel free. Okay, we can come back to you if you're having any kind of trouble there. Anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask of anybody who's spoken about running for and serving on the township committee? Anybody? Everybody's pretty much muted, so if you do want to ask a question, you should unmute yourself. I don't see any.
This is Ted Dorset. I have a question.
Right, Ted.
I have my question is, what is the what time requirements are involved in it?
You mean in terms of serving on the township committee?
Yes.
All right. Well, so I will say that Dean Daffis is probably one of the most dedicated people we have ever had on the township committee. My guess is that he puts as many hours as a full-time job each week into this township committee. But I would say that, I think it's hard to imagine that anybody could do this job in less than 10 to 15 hours a week. But since Dean is a current member of the township committee, I'll defer to him first to answer that question.
Ted, thanks for the question. And it's often the question that goes unanswered and the question that prohibits people from even seriously considering running. I have run across many people who have said to me, I really want to run, but I just don't think that I have the time to run. And India showed that it's possible, even when you are a young mom and you're raising kids that are not grown yet, and you have a full-time job. All of us have a full-time job with the exception of one retired member who is retired. That member has served on the township committee many, many terms. I think this is going to be his 9th term on the township committee. Vic DeLuca, my running partner, Vic and I have always run together for the township committee, and my mentor. But when Vic first was on the township committee, and back in the day when he was also the mayor all those years, he had a full-time job too.
He was the executive director of a foundation. He had a pretty demanding job.
Very demanding job. So look, the way this works is you can make it what you want it to be, right? Some of us are interested in a lot of different things and how those things interplay. And some of us have interests that are more narrow. And so accordingly, you may not have as many committee assignments as your other governing body colleagues. You may have less, depending on your interests. But we do have 2 governing body public sessions that are required every month. And those are in the evening. And now we are more inclusive and flexible thanks to COVID. Our meetings are now hybrid. So you don't have to attend in person. If you're a working parent with kids at home, you don't have to be there in person. You can do it like this from your living room or kitchen room. And then there are the meetings that happen also virtually for the subcommittees that you have to attend where you're a liaison. And then you attend the community events and the ribbon cuttings on the weekends, right? So there is a sacrifice of your personal time. I don't want to sugarcoat that, just not be transparent about that. It is a big sacrifice of your personal time, your household time, your family time to go to these community events, to represent the community, to stand with them at all these cool things that we do throughout the year. But there's 5 of us. So we work it out sometimes, if one member says, listen, I got the kids tonight, I've got swim meet tomorrow, I can't come to these ribbon cuttings, we make sure that someone else goes so that there is at least one representative from the governing body who's there to stand with the community or with the business that's opening. We don't all have to go to everything, right? So again, it's up to you how much time you want to put into it. There are the required meetings. But I will say when someone approached me about considering running here, it's not just a couple of hours a week. It's a lot more than that. But you know what? You get a lot out of it. When you shape your community, when you see that you can actually solve longstanding problems that have not been solved, when you see that you as a legislator can, along with your neighbors, make change that you can see, right? That is the most powerful thing that exists. It's so powerful. And it doesn't matter that you're a volunteer and you're making a very tiny little stipend, currently $4,500 a year. A year. Yes, a year. None of that matters. And yes, you may have missed out on a family thing, but you're doing something greater than that. And you can have your family come with you to a lot of these things too. So I hope that helps people.
It does because I mean, excuse me. I work for Morgan Stanley. I'm a service delivery manager, so I'm one of the people that stand between IT and the user base, and I get things done and solve problems for people. So I mean, what you're saying is basically what I do on a normal basis, so it wouldn't be a hard transition into doing something like this. I'm just trying to figure how I'm not going to say that this would be work, but it would be the work-life balance between the two is what I would like to understand more. And you've given me some insight into that, but yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for the answer there.
Thank
Yes,
you, Dean. Thank
Ian
you, Ted.
mentioned
And I see
Ted. Oh,
India has something she'd like to add as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I did want to say that there is the actual, my body needs to be in a certain space in time. There is some reading and prep work that needs to happen. Every Friday, Liz Fritzen brings to your home a packet of papers, lots of papers. Some of them are just so you can say that you saw them. Others of them, if we're talking about not legislation, but
New ordinance.
laws and ordinances that the township is trying to implement or change or update or amend, you're going to need to be able to take time to read that. Sometimes it will require conversation with one or another member of the township committee. At one point, I remember we were considering turning a roadway from one-way to two-way, and that required actually going and talking to the residents of that street to find out what it would do for their lifestyle. So there is some prep work that you have to add. I would say if if somebody asked me about how much time it's going to take, I would say no less than 8 to 10 hours a week, no less. That's on a light week, I would say.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, India.
That's helpful. That's very helpful.
Great.
I mean, but even when we were trying to get the speed humps on Porter Road and Field Road, I mean, I walked and got signatures, and so I mean, the greater good is what we're working towards. But I just wanted to get a feel of what's put in versus what comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's great, Ted. So Ted, one thing again, if you are thinking about doing this, you can reach out to any of us on this call, but also keep in mind, if you are considering running, we ask that you please get your letter of interest and resume into us by February 12th, if you're interested in running, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Great. Thank you. So we did want to speak this evening also about running for and serving as a Maplewood Democratic Committee district leaders. A number of people on the call this evening are serving in that capacity. Some of them have already spoken because they are or have been on the township committee. But in the last couple of years, we have been very, very fortunate to have an incredibly hardworking and dedicated person working on behalf of the Democratic Committee who has joined us. This person started by getting involved in the campaign to get rid of Rodney Frelinghuysen in the 11th Congressional District. And when we found out that she was doing that work while living in Maplewood, we went after her to ask her to become a Maplewood Democratic Committee district leader. She has really taken the bull by the horns on improving our get out the vote efforts. And I'm going to ask Becky Shear to speak to us a little bit about running for and serving as a Maplewood Democratic Committee district leader. Becky?
Hi, everyone. And hi, Ian. Thanks for the intro.
With kids, see?
Yeah, with kids. I did start out. I grew up locally. I'm in Madison, so I did start out working to get rid of Rodney Frelinghuysen when I moved back to New Jersey from the city that felt local enough and get Mikey Sherrill elected. And now it's so exciting because Maplewood is now in the 11th Congressional District. So she's now my congresswoman and Rodney Frelinghuysen is not. So, but yeah, it's been really exciting. I first started as a district leader in 2019. I think someone had stepped down to move. So I got kind of approached to fill out the rest of her term. And then maybe the year later, I was actually on the ballot and got elected, and that was exciting. And that year, someone actually ran against me and my running mate. So this doesn't happen too often at the district leader level, but someone ran against us, so we had to wage a mini campaign and had flyers and went around and handed them out. But yeah, it's been really exciting, and I co-chair our Get Out the Vote committee, and I would say that the most important job as a district leader, as Ian and others said, is to get out the vote in your district. Know who the Democrats. You're just specifically getting out the Democratic vote. You're supporting Democratic candidates up and down the ballot, and getting out the vote of Democratic voters and getting people registered, making sure they are informed, getting them to the polls, they know who the candidates are. So it's just a lot of that stuff, tabling at events and just spreading awareness about the Democratic Party and our candidates. And I will turn it over to someone else if so. And I mean, that just makes it sound like a whole lot of work. We also have a whole lot of fun too. There are parties you get to go to, you get to meet a lot of other people in other towns. And it's really just a whole lot of fun, even though it is some work. It's both. I'll turn it over.
We're very, very fortunate to have Becky doing all this great work. I also want to ask Shannon Cuttle to speak about their experience running for and serving as a district leader. And again, I know I mentioned it at the very beginning. Up until 2020, there had not been anybody from Maplewood who was a delegate at the presidential or the Democratic Convention for President for over 30 years. And in 2020, we were very fortunate that our very own Shannon got to serve as a delegate at that convention. And so we want to ask Shannon to speak about their experience running for and serving as a Maplewood Democratic Committee district leader. So Shannon.
Thank you, Ian. And thank you, Becky and Dean and Garnett and India and other fellow Maplewood Dems on here on the call. So first off, I just want to say that the time commitment to be in public service, even if it's as a district leader, it's that has a less amount than it is, of course, on township committee or running for other office like school board locally, which we're not discussing tonight, but just want to flag that, and or in the time you give, and that folks should be mindful about that time commitment, right? Because it's not just physical, online, offline, email. So just really be mindful and looking at how that fits within your family structure for that true commitment for a full term of service. And so one of the things I had the esteemed honor of serving as a Maplewood District 1 leader, and for the 2021 election cycle, trying to get for the Democratic National Committee, had the esteemed honor of being able to be elected by the county and the state to represent not just Maplewood and New Jersey to the Democratic National Convention in 2020. It was virtual. It was a whole new setup. You will have a different experience if you so choose to apply to go to Chicago this year and be in person, which sounds really exciting. But I say that because it was two things. It was my volunteer work with the state and also as a district leader, but that led me to want to apply to be able to be considered to be a representative of New Jersey to the delegate convention. And that process was actually really easy. So right now you can go on to the New Jersey State Democratic Committee website. The application is open until March 6th for any individual who's a registered Democrat prior to the state to be able to apply to be a delegate member. And in that process, it was really super simple. You have to be able to get support and nominations from your county. It's encouraged that folks also apply early. But also at the same time, I encourage anyone, especially folks from diverse communities, folks that are underrepresented as well. I had the esteemed honor of being the first openly trans non-binary delegate sent from New Jersey to the DNC, to the convention, and following under the footsteps only of under Bab Sipperstein, who was New Jersey's first openly trans delegate to the DNC. And I say that because representation matters, visibility matters. It can change lives, it can save lives. Dean and I also talk about this a lot. Like, it's important to be able to step up. And I encourage everyone to apply, whether you think you have the background experience. It's about what you bring and the passion. So please apply. It's open until March 6th on the New Jersey Democratic website, state committee website. Please go there as well. They're doing several other listening sessions. And I also encourage folks, anybody on this call, from whatever your background is, whether you feel as though you haven't volunteered enough or you're new to politics, whether you've been behind the scenes in the backgrounds and we don't know your name, and if you feel as though there needs to be a voice at the table that you haven't seen before, to please step up and know that this is what the space is, whether it's for township committee, for district leader, or applying to be part of the New Jersey Delegate Assembly to the DNC convention in Chicago later this year. Please know that your voice matters and that folks are there to support you. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you very much. That was great. I know I said we were going to try to do this in an hour, but please indulge me for another few minutes. I think we have a classic example of everything that's been spoken about so far in our meeting on the call with us. It's a woman who was an activist as a younger person, who came to Maplewood when she got married and raised her children here, was involved in the schools, was involved in her neighborhood association. In 2005, she became a Maplewood Democratic Committee district leader, and as of January 9th, 2024, is now the Assemblywoman representing the 28th Legislative District of New Jersey, including Maplewood. So I'm going to ask Garnett Hall to talk about her experience and fill everybody in about that this evening. She's probably going to really inspire everybody as we end the call too. So Garnett.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time. This is really a wonderful thing for us to sit down together and discuss and think about what it is that we could do to improve our community. I wanted to just tell you a little bit of a story. I've heard about all the leadership tonight, but there might be some people out there that says, okay, I want to do this, but I'm not ready yet. That was me. So I wanted to give you just a little story of how I got to where I am today, because it just might fit what you're looking for. As Ian mentioned, I had a friend when I moved to Maplewood. He was a district leader, later became a chair, Doug Bland. He came to me one day and says, you need to do this. We grew up in Montclair. We were all activists, and he knew that I would engage myself into the community. And so I decided to try and see. My husband started with me. He dropped out. And that might happen. You might try this, and it might not work for you. So I think that everybody, if you heard tonight that it's a little bit too much for you, be like me. Start out as a worker bee. Just join. Join as a district leader. Find out what it's all about. It might take a few years for you to get to the levels that some of the people that you heard tonight. These were all my mentors, and that's what I say. My mentors. Listen to that. You could start out small. Be a worker bee. Go out to the community, start to do all these things, and guess what? Things will happen. And one of the things that we always say is ask somebody else to do it with you. Ask them how are they involved. And I think that you'll find that the passion that comes out of you, just like it has come out of me, 19 years ago today, I was sitting in the seat that you were sitting in. You hear that? 19 years ago. And I still love it. So you could be a worker bee, you could be a supporter. I was a vice chair to Ian for the last, I don't know, 10, 19, however many years. There's a place for everybody, not just one place. So step out, get involved, see how it works for you, and you'll find out, like I did, it'll be 19 years later and you'll say, boy, I remember when I first started. So if you have any questions, I know I've encouraged my neighbors, Ted is one of them, to get involved at some level. You don't have to bite off the whole burger. Just take a bite and see how you like it, because we need you. And that's the one thing that I want to tell you. We need you. We need people to stay involved and to be involved, and then eventually perhaps to lead. Any questions, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to help you with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Garnett. And as I said, I knew that Garnett was going to have provide some inspiration for people who are on the call this evening. So we thank everybody for being here this evening. A couple of things to think about as we go forward. Remember, if you are thinking about running for the Township Committee, please, please, please get in touch with us before February 12th, when we expect everybody to submit a letter of interest and a resume if you're interested in running. There's more time for people who want to serve as district leader. You can always follow up iangrodman@gmail.com or hello@maplewooddemocrats.org, or anybody else who's on the call this evening. I just put my name out there because I am the chair. We're also going to post this to our website. We do have a website where you can learn about a lot of this information at maplewooddemocrats.org. You can also follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram. We don't have other social media at this point, but that's keeping us busy enough. So we want to thank everybody again. Wish you all a good night. And please, 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 feel free to contact us with any questions, any more information you want to try to get your hands on. And we hope that we'll see you getting more involved with the Democratic Party and with Maplewood government. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I'll definitely be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Deb. Thank you, guys.
Well done,
Okay.
Maplewood Dems. Well done.
All right.
Good night.
Maplewood Dems. Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.